Good morning, everyone. You're very welcome to this morning's session. I'm just keeping an eye on the numbers there, so we'll give people just a minute or two to get into the room with us before we make a start. Okay, I think we will get started. We have a packed agenda this morning for you, so we'll get going. Good morning, and thank you all very much for joining us. You're very welcome to the third event of the Blue Economy Cluster Builder. This is SMEs making the most of funding opportunities in the Scottish Blue Economy. My name is Jennifer Fox. I'm a senior consultant with an environmental consultancy company called Aquaculture, and I'm the program manager for the Blue Economy Cluster Builder, running this session this morning in collaboration and with thanks to OGTC. We'll move on to the next slide, Hannah, please. Do you want to just run through some of the housekeeping for this morning?
Perfect. Good morning, everyone. As you're all probably aware of, webinar housekeeping rules, just to let you know, your microphones are muted for this webinar and your cameras are turned off. We'll be using the Q&A function for any questions, so you can find that at the bottom of your screen. So we encourage you to just ask your questions throughout the presentations, and we'll come to them all at the Q&A at the end. We'll also be using Mentimeter throughout the presentation. So the code is on the screen right now, but we'll pop it up for you later as well. So you just go to www.menti.com or scan the QR code when we come to the slide. As mentioned at the start, we are also recording the webinar, and we would ask that you don't take any screenshots, and we expect you to act responsibly, and we'll challenge anything less. That's all from me.
Thanks, Anna.
This is just the Menti slide that will appear later on as well. So if anyone wants to scan it and get it ready, you're more than welcome to.
We will pop that up again when we come to asking the Menti questions a little bit later. Okay, so to introduce this morning's event, hopefully many of you are quite familiar with the Blue Economy Cluster Builder at this stage, but for anybody who is new to the program or hasn't been to one of our events previously, we will introduce what the Cluster Builder is. And then the main purpose of today's event is to have a look at the challenges and opportunities that SMEs face while working in the Blue Economy and how they can best utilize funding opportunities. We want to present some examples, some best practices and some tips and tricks for those funding opportunities, and get into a bit of a discussion as to how best these challenges and solutions can be optimized. Next slide, please. So we've got a couple of speakers this morning. As I introduced myself already, Jennifer Fox with Aquaculture. So I will just run through a very short introduction to the Blue Economy Cluster Builder. We then have Dr. Karen Skeen, who is a Senior Innovation Manager with Highlands and Islands Enterprise. We've got Craig Meyer, who is a specialist in the Enterprise Europe network for Scottish Enterprise. And then we have Sarah Riddle and Daniel Carcajona. Sarah is the Director of Business Engagement and Daniel is the Aquaculture Innovation Officer for the Sustainable Aquaculture Innovation Centre, or SAIC. So we'll run through our speakers this morning, and then we'll have some time for a Q&A session. So just to let you all know, we do plan to finish by 11:30. And as Hannah has mentioned, we do have a Q&A session at the end. And so please do use the chat function and the Q&A function in Zoom to add your questions or your comments or your thoughts there, and we'll come around to them at the end of this morning's session. If you would like to pick up with any of us separately, just to mention that email address there, it's info@scottishblueeconomy.co.uk. So please do get in touch. If there is anything that you would like to pick up on with myself or any of our speakers, I can put you in touch with them. Okay, next slide, please. So just to get into a little bit of introduction about the Blue Economy and specifically the Blue Economy Cluster Builder that we're speaking on today, we have taken these two definitions of the Blue Economy to kind of frame the work that we're doing. The first one comes from the European Commission, and it states all economic activities related to oceans, seas and coasts, covers a wide range of interlinked, established and emerging sectors. But we also thought that this second definition from the World Bank is important to take into account when we're talking about sectors within the Blue Economy as well, which specifically states that the Blue Economy is the sustainable use of ocean resources for economic growth, improved livelihoods and jobs, and ocean ecosystem health, which comprises of renewable energy, fisheries, maritime transport, etc., etc. And we know that there's a wide diversity within the Blue Economy in Scotland, and we'll get into a little bit of that in just a few minutes. Next slide, please. So the Blue Economy Cluster Builder is a specific programme funded through Scottish Enterprise that started about a year ago. And as I mentioned, the project team is led by ourselves at Aquaculture, but we're working really closely with the Oil and Gas Technology Centre, OGTC, and another company called Highland Limited. And we're also working with a strategic advisory group, which has representatives across the main sectors within the Blue Economy in Scotland as well. Next slide, please. So the main aim of this programme is to establish a cluster builder that will communicate and raise awareness of the benefits of the Blue Economy, specifically around Scottish SMEs, small and medium enterprises, and enable them to take advantage of new opportunities. Ultimately, the aim is that we want to increase the number of Scottish companies that are operating in the Blue Economy, and for those that already are, to enable them to grow within the Blue Economy, to potentially diversify and do more within those Blue Economy sectors in Scotland. Next slide, please. So there's a number of different ways that we are doing that within the Blue Economy Cluster Builder programme. The first one is building a sustainable Scottish Blue Economy cluster and raising awareness of those Scottish SMEs, the Scottish SMEs Blue Economy capabilities. The second one is delivering on Blue Economy developments and events for SMEs. So these types of events that we have been organising over the last year or so, and we have a whole programme of events coming up in the next year as well. And the third task is all around providing market intelligence for SMEs. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, there's a huge diversity to the Blue Economy in Scotland. So obviously there's a lot of different areas that we are working in. We've pulled out the top 12 within this slide here, but as you can see in the background of the image, there's so much more that goes into the Blue Economy in Scotland, in addition to these kind of 12 sectors that provide the most employment and the most income for Scotland. And so it's a really challenging task that we're doing in terms of tackling the whole Blue Economy, but also we're really aware that there's potentially common challenges and solutions across these different sectors for the key challenges that those sectors are facing at the moment. And so where the Blue Economy Cluster Builder can really come in and play a role, we think, and we'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this, is in creating cross-sectoral collaboration and providing opportunities for networking across these different sectors. And so, yeah, we think that there's a real opportunity there to kind of break down some of the silos that may or may not exist across these different sectors and provide those opportunities for more discussion and collaboration cross-sectorally in Scotland. Next slide, please. So that's just a very brief introduction to the programme, to the Blue Economy Cluster Builder from me. Again, I'll just remind you, if you have any thoughts or questions on any of that, please do pop them into the chat and I'll be happy to discuss anything further with you at the end of the session. But for now, we'll get into our first talk for this morning. So I'll hand it over to you, Karen, please.
Hi everyone. Today I'm going to talk about research and development, why it's important, and give some advice and guidance on how to write a successful application. Thank you. So research and development is one of the key markers of innovation. It's well established that innovative businesses grow twice as fast as those who don't, and are much less likely to fail. Innovation in a business can increase productivity, which can lead to business growth. business growth then has the wider impact of economic growth. Due to the strong association between R&D and business growth, there are lots of financial incentives available from the public sector to encourage businesses to undertake R&D and to innovate. Next slide, please. So if you've got an idea in your business of a project you want to do, before you start looking for available funding opportunities, it's really important to consider the following things, as this will help you identify the most appropriate funding mechanism, and also it'll help you when you come to write the application and prevent you wasting time. So firstly, you need to be really clear on what your project is. What is it going to involve, and what are the outputs going to be? Just moving my picture so I can see. What are the outputs going to be? You need to think about your project costs. So how much is a project going to cost in total, and how much can you commit to that project? What is the shortfall that you're looking for, that you need to address? Project duration. So how long is your project going to take? Is it going to be a short project, a matter of months, or is it going to be a longer project and take years? It's really important to be realistic with your time plan. Again, have you tested the market? So what problem is it that you're addressing with your project? Have you tested it? Is there evidence of market need for this? You also need to think about what stage your idea and your product or process is at the moment. Is it just at the idea stage? Do you know that it's feasible but need to further develop it? Or is it a prototype, just needs a bit more work to it? So that's again going to influence the types of funding that's suitable for your project. What stage will your project be at the end? Is it going to be that you've proven it feasible, we have a prototype, or is it going to be market ready? Next slide, please. Other things that you need to consider are how challenging is your project going to be? Is there a high chance it wouldn't be feasible? Is there a lot of uncertainty around it? Or is it quite a low risk technical project? Another thing to consider is, should your project be a collaboration? So if you had a collaborative partner, would that make the project better? Is it one that you would just do yourself? Are there elements of the project that you would need to contract out to other people? Or would the project benefit from some academic involvement? All things to think about when you're choosing project partners going ahead. Intellectual property. So it's really important to consider this at the outset. So will you have sufficient access to the generated IP to be able to commercialize your product and idea at the end? Do you have the access to the background IP that's going to allow you to carry out this project? Really importantly, you need to think about where your project sits in the context of your wider growth. And are you going to be able to quantify the potential financial returns for your project? Really importantly, economic impact. So at the end of the day, all funders are investors. So it needs to be clear what return we're going to get for the investment. Next slide, please. It's also important to consider the risk of your project. So R&D funding can be split into three sections. Feasibility for early stage projects, industrial research, which is defined as acquiring new knowledge for new products or significant improvement, and experimental development, which is using existing knowledge for new or improved products. So you also have to identify where on the TRL scale that your project's going to fit. So I'm sure everyone's aware of what the scale is. The early stages 1 and 2 are usually academic work, and 8 and 9 are pre-commercial. Public sector funding usually sits between TRL level 3 and 7. And as a product or idea moves through the TRL levels, the costs of the project are going to increase, but at the same time, you're also decreasing the risk. Next slide, please. So you've thought about your project, you've got all your details together, and you've found the most appropriate funding mechanism for your project. Then it's time to start on the application form. So all application forms are going to be different. So I'm not going to focus on one particular one. However, they all focus on the same key areas. So innovation has to be at the heart of your application form. You have to get across really clearly what your innovation is, why your idea improves on the current state of the art, and do you have freedom to operate in this area? And give some evidence of this. Have you done patent searches, literature reviews, competitor analysis? You need to demonstrate that you know that there's space for your project and your idea. You need to get across to the assessor as well why it's the right time for your project. The business case is really important. So you must be able to get across in your application that there is evidence of need and demand for your idea and your project. So what problem are you addressing? Are you able to can you demonstrate in your application form that addressing this is going to provide a credible business opportunity? You need to show that you've done your market research as well. So have you tested the market? Do you know what the market size is? What are the trends? Who are your competition? And when you're filling in this section, it's important not to just make closed statements like there is no competition. Evidence that you know the market. If there's who are your closest competition and why does your product or idea improve on what's already available? You need to get across how you're going to make money from your idea. So do you have a clear route to market, and also have you identified what your business model is going to be? Your value proposition. So compare your product and idea to existing products, and also get across in the application what value you're bringing to your customers. Next slide, please. So once you've completed the part of the form, the application that is going to get across what your project is and the importance of doing your project, you need to get across to the assessor how you're going to deliver your project. So it's really important that you outline all the activities that you're going to do in your project. You can't take for granted that the assessor is going to be able to fill in the gaps. You need to divide all the work into packages, identify key milestones, and a realistic timetable. And all this is going to give confidence to the assessor that you know exactly what you're doing and are capable of delivering. You're also going to have to demonstrate where your project sits within your wider corporate strategy. How critical is it to your business growth, and where are you putting your resources? Project costs. So when you're addressing this section of the application, be as accurate as you possibly can. Carefully cost the project. If you've got partners or third-party work, provide quotations. It's really important that you give a realistic cost to the project, because that'll really seed doubt in an assessor's mind if they feel that the project is under or over costed. The team, again, is really important. So the assessor doesn't know you. So you need to get across on paper why we should invest in you. You need to demonstrate you've got the skills, experience, and resources to be able to deliver the project to the highest level. Similarly, if you're bringing on partners, you need to get across why what they're bringing to the team as well, and why they're the best partner for your project. So don't just give a name and a business name, detail what they're bringing to the project. Need for support. So you need to demonstrate what this funding is going to allow you to do and what that you couldn't do without it. Sustainability, again, really important. So you need to consider the impacts that your project might have on climate change or the move to net zero, and also how are you going to be able to measure the impacts. Next slide, please. So just to run over some hints and tips for when you're writing your application. It's a really minor one, but don't repeatedly use the word innovative. It doesn't add any value, and you're just using up valuable word space. Don't start the project until you receive notification of an award. Don't assume you can consider IP at the later date. This really needs to be considered up front as you start when you're considering your project. And don't leave applying to the last minute. Below, there's an image, which actually I'm not sure you can see the bottom of, but it's from Innovate UK, and it shows the number of submissions coming up to the competition deadline. So you can see where midnight lies on the closing date, and in the last 2 hours of the application before the deadline, there's a vast majority of submissions to the competition. So this is really sorry, someone just phoned me. This is really important because you don't want to, you've put so much hard work and effort into your grant application. You don't want to risk not being able to submit it due to a technical problem in the last few hours. So again, plan ahead and submit early. Next slide, please. So do make sure you fit the scope. So don't fill out an application if you're not entirely sure the project fits the competition. If you've got any doubts, get in touch with the funder. They'll usually be able to help establish eligibility. Some competitions have expression of interest, so please submit one, and that's a really good way to judge and make sure that your project is eligible. Read the guidance. There's always detailed guidance notes about competitions. They usually also outline the kind of information that they're looking for in your answers. For Innovate UK, they have briefings, so make sure you watch that. Really importantly, be realistic. There's nothing will seem more doubt than an unrealistic plan, an unrealistic time frame and costs. So really do your research on that. Comply with all the scheme rules, especially for competitive programmes, and submit all the information that's requested. Answer all the questions, make sure you proofread and check word counts. So make sure you're answering the questions fully and not leaving a lot of extra space that you could be filling with valuable information that is going to increase the chances of your project being successful. So check the competition deadline. Again, it would be devastating if you spent all your time and effort putting together a really great application and then miss the deadline. And finally, really importantly, is get some advice and feedback on your proposal. You're living and breathing your business and project, so no one knows it better than you. And it's quite easy to sometimes miss something that's not obvious to an outsider. So really it's really helpful to get an external view on it. Next slide, please. And that's it. So just to highlight some support that's available from us. If you're writing an application or if you're looking for funding options, please get in touch and we can help you identify the most appropriate means. If you're writing an application, we're more than happy to review the drafts and provide some feedback. If you need a mock interview, again, really happy to do that. And also if you've got IP questions, we're able to support you with that. So we're here to help, so please get in touch. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Karen, for that. There's some questions coming in, so thank you to those who are submitting some questions. So we'll save those for the end, but just a reminder, if you do have any questions or comments or thoughts on any of that, please do pop them in the chat or the Q&A function. So thanks, Karen. We'll hand over to you, Craig, next.
Thanks for that. Good morning, everyone, and thanks to Karen for explaining some of the hints and tips on how to win funding. I think one of the points that Karen had at the bottom of her slide on exciting and inspiring, I can absolutely only agree with that. The assessors are only human, so if they've had a bad week, and if you're the final one being looked at the end of the week, and they've had some bad ones they've been looking at, then yeah, you've really got to make sure that you stand out if they're just having a bad day and have that compelling story. So yeah, totally agree. We're now going to talk about some of the funding streams that are available and some of the support that's available from Scottish Enterprise, and also mention High as well. So if we go on to the next slide. Next slide after that. Thank you very much. So a little bit of background. So I'm Craig Moyer from Scottish Enterprise, but I'm also part of Enterprise Europe Network, and why we're talking about that will become clear as we go on. So it's got Europe in the title, but it's actually 60 countries. So we've actually got countries including Canada, South Korea, and China involved as well. And across all of those countries, we have 600 partner organisations, mainly things like development agencies such as Scottish Enterprise, but also chambers of commerce. And across those organisations, we have 3,000 essentially boots on the ground. So if you are, say, looking for a business partner in Poland, then I can reach out to my Polish contact, and they'll be able to then look through their business network and see if there's anything that would be able to help you. In Scotland, it's Scottish Enterprise. We've got 10 people across a variety of sectors, and also at the Highland Council as well. And for the rest of the UK, it's Innovate UK. It's the biggest business network in the world, and it's such a big network, it could be a little bit unwieldy. So we are split up into sector groups, and I'm a member of the Maritime Sector Group, which is one of the growing ones. And we now have, I think so, 25 countries and regions involved with that. So Blue Economy is absolutely one of our hot topics. Next slide. So the two main things that we'll be talking about here, absolutely, is the funding and the partnering side as well, because a lot of the funding calls are collaborative, so you do need that other partner. And we're going to be talking about non-Scottish enterprise and non-Highlands and Islands enterprise. So it's applicable for anyone across Scotland and again across the whole of the UK as well, although there are specific calls from Scottish enterprise and Highlands and Islands enterprise. So if you want to look at those specific ones, again, happy to talk about those, and that does include the green job call from SE. We'll be concentrating on other ones here, including ones from Innovate UK, should be Horizon Europe there, and Eurostars as well, as long as a few other specific ones. And as we said, partnering is a big thing as well. So if you need that other business partner for your project, say you're a hardware provider, you need some software, then we can help that. And again, that could be across Scotland, it could be UK, or it could be from another country if that's applicable to the call. Next slide. Yep, so we'll go into some of the funding that's available. So what we realised is that, yeah, it's definitely a complicated funding landscape. And I think that's probably been alluded to in some of the chat that's been going on. So we released this service about a year ago, and it's to help make sense of that complicated funding landscape. There's a lot out there. So just as Karen was saying as well, if you get in touch with us, we can try and help find the right funding for you. This one that's right for your innovation project. So it could be it's at the right TRL, it's in the right thematic area for you. And we also try and help strengthen your application. And we provide a review service, just as Highlands and Islands Enterprise does as well. So for us, if you can get a draft application 2 weeks before the deadline, then we can get a review team together. I try and get about 4 people together from a variety of backgrounds. It could be a maritime tech background, but also try and get some other people from, say, finance into that as well. So they all look at it through their own different lenses, and will provide some commentary back for your proposal. We have looked at, I think it's over 300 Innovate UK Smart Awards alone. And then, yeah, also we've looked at loads of other calls. So we've now got a very good idea of what ones have a good chance of winning, because these are competitive funding calls. And the last thing that we can do is you can join up for the bulletin. So this comes out every month, and it just has the latest innovation funding that is available for your company. Next slide. Oh, seem to have gone through a few there. So wait to get back. That's it. So we'll go into 2 of these in a lot more detail in a minute. But it's, so we've got Innovate UK Smart there, EIC Accelerator, and Eurostars as well. And again, you'll have the slides at the end of this. You can look at this at your leisure. And there is some links at the bottom of the slide. You can just see some of them. Funding essentially comes in 2 different flavors. You've got open and themed. All of the ones on the slide here are open, so that means that they're open for any technology and any sector as well. And all of these ones come round on a cyclical basis. So for Innovate UK Smart, every quarter you will have another deadline being released, and you can work to that deadline. For Eurostars, twice every year. Yeah, EIC Accelerator has just started. It used to be called SME Instrument, so some of you might have heard of that one as well. And we've got a cut-off, coming up on the 6th of October. There is themed calls as well, and that could be a very, very specific theme. So it could be batteries for vehicles or for boats. And those tend to just come around once in a while, but we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to run a Menti poll just to see who has applied for some of these funding calls. So you've got the QR code there, and you've got the code to get into that. So it's just who has applied for any of these funding calls. So that's Innovate UK Smart, EIC Accelerator, and Eureka Eurostars. So if you could just get into that and see which ones that you have applied for, it'd be interesting to see where we're at with the companies there. So EIC Accelerator, again, used to be SME Instrument. It's definitely the most competitive out the lot, which we'll talk about. So it's TRL 5 to 8, 70% funding for that one. So you do get, for a high TRL, it's actually quite a lot of funding you can get there. For Innovate UK Smart, for the higher TRLs, it's only at the 50%. Eurostars is by far the easiest one to win. Again, we'll talk about that in a little bit. So that's good to see. Okay, so a few people have gone for Innovate UK Smart, and one for EIC Accelerator. So that's good to see as well. Okay, and we'll let it go for another few seconds, and then we'll close down the Menti. Okay, so 5 for Innovate UK Smart and 1 for EIC Accelerator. Brilliant, thank you for that. So we'll go on to the next slide. Thank you. So yeah, these are competitive. There's no doubt about it. So you'll see success rates of 10% down to 5%, sometimes even lower. Don't let that put you off. The way I like to look at it is, yes, that is the success rates as they stand. However, if you write an application that has got rid of most of the typos, has reasonable grammar, you're probably in the top 50%. If you can actually just answer the questions, it sounds really patronizing, but there is essentially, it is exam questions. If you can answer the exam questions, you've probably put another 20-30% on, and then it's just refining after that. It's just, again, making the assessor's life easier. But they are competitive. You do have to put the work in to do these, and it could be a month or 2 months to try and get some of this funding. They are time sensitive. Even we don't see when, for instance, Innovate UK are putting up calls. They usually go out on a Monday morning up on their website. And you'll have typically a 6 to 12 week window to get your proposal in. Certainly that's for the themed ones. For the cyclical ones, we can usually infer when the next one will be coming out, because it will be straight after the last deadline. We'll talk about some of the European funding later as well. And they're varied. So some of them are the straight grants, some from SBRI are contracts. That's 100% funding, but you are fulfilling a contract. And some are accelerators, grant and equity. And again, we've said some are open, so they're open to all sectors. You could be going up against something in agriculture, all the way through to quantum. And then there are some themed, and there have been some maritime ones that have been coming through, which has been good to see. Next slide. So specifically for Scottish Enterprise region, when should companies get in touch with us? So first of all, do you have that market-oriented innovation? It's something that the market actually, you know the market wants. Are the project costs over 50,000? So yeah, we're looking at slightly meatier projects. Is the project new to market? So again, we're talking about that game-changing technology, that cutting-edge technology, rather than just new to the company. Do you have freedom to operate, or do you own the IP? Again, you can get in touch with Scottish Enterprise or Highlands and Islands Enterprise to talk about those aspects. Do you know the market, and do you know the size of the market and how you're going to address it? Again, get in touch with the relevant agencies to talk about the research that's available for you. And do you have the right management and technical team? Again, if you've got a hardware project and you're looking for some software that's missing, maybe we can help you find that partner for that. And again, all of these ones, apart from some of the contract arrangements, are all match funding. So can you meet the match funding for these funding calls? Next slide. So yeah, get in touch with us at the Funding Innovation Support Service. Complete a funding questionnaire. What we've got there is essentially a one-pager. It's a very, very cut down version of what's going to be asked for some of these calls. And it's just to tease out some of the questions we could then ask as to what's the most appropriate funding for you, and point you in that direction to see if it's a good match for you. We can then chat about the options, the timescales. You'll write your proposal. If you want to use our review service, then we can give you feedback. We'll give you a few pages of detailed commentary. You'll submit the proposal to the funder. Hopefully you're successful. And again, just as with Karen said, yeah, we can help you with any pitch preparation if required. Next slide. Okay, some highlighted funding. We'll just go through quickly a few of the calls. Innovate UK Smart, that's definitely one of the workhorses that we've got there. And I know certainly there gave a review to 25 proposals, I think, at the last deadline there. So it was a busy few weeks in the lead up to that deadline. For this one, you'll have 10 questions. Only 2 of them are technology related. The other 8 are all about market awareness, your team, your IP, and your project plan. So again, are you the company to deliver a successful innovation project? Again, this one's open. Up to 2 million available, and depending on your TRL, your technology readiness level, it could be from 70% down to 50% funding for that. And for the longer projects, there's a requirement for collaboration. Next slide. Oh, sorry, before we go back, if we go back, brilliant, thank you. There's a current call that's open, so it's one just closed. This one's open till 25th of August. If you'd like a review, then 11th of August. If you get the drafts in there, that'd be great. Next slide. Eurostars. So this is one that I quite like to promote because it is one of the easier ones to get. So yeah, you've got a much better chance of winning this one. And I think one of the reasons that people are slightly put off with it is just because you do have to have that other partner, and it's a partner from one of the Eureka countries. So it's mainly Europe plus other countries such as Canada and Singapore and South Korea. But again, we can help you find that partner if this funding stream looks of interest to you, if you don't already have one. There was a few companies were going for the last round, they already had Canadian partners, so they were looking for that. Next call's coming up in autumn 2021, and again, there's 2 per year. Although it's got Euro in the title, this is essentially Brexit proof because each country comes with its own pot of cash, and for the UK, it comes from Innovate UK. So it's project costs up to 360k euro. Each country has its own specific criteria. So for the UK, it's only SMEs that can apply or can receive the funding. You can have bigger companies involved with that, and it's a 60% of eligible costs as well. And there's some more information there as well. Next slide. So some of the other ones we haven't mentioned before. So this is Europe Wave, and this was originally pioneered by Wave Energy Scotland. I believe Highlands and Islands Enterprise are leading on this one now. And this one is a pre-commercial procurement. It's a Scotland-Basque country collaboration, although any EU country can apply, but the demonstration must take place in Scottish or Basque waters. It's a pre-commercial procurement. It starts with concept stage, and then it goes down all the way through to something that will actually be delivered. The full details should be coming out, I believe, mid-June. And the actual call will close in September. So we know that there is at least one Scottish company put themselves forward for this. I know there's one in France has been very interested in this. Have been asking a lot of questions as to how this one works. So certainly look that one up if you're in the wave energy technology business. Next slide. This could be a webinar in and of itself, and indeed we've just, I believe it's 2 weeks ago, we did hold an entire day event on this, so I'm not going to try and condense that all down into a few lines because it's just not possible. Horizon Europe is the big funding stream that is just coming out at the moment. So it's the one that comes after Horizon 2020. These are big meaty projects with multiple partners. There's 2 prizes for companies that take part in this. The first one is, yes, there will be funding, funding at a decent level as well, intervention rate. But the other one is that you'll be working with people in the sector that you're working in, the part of the sector that you're working in, so you'll be getting to know those intimately across the lifetime of the project. So there's 2 big advantages for it. I'm not going to go through all the ones there. This is from something called Cluster 5, and the Blue Economy aspect for this is Zero Emission Waterborne Transport, which is the acronym that's on a lot of the calls there, and these will be coming out over the next while. So zero emission waterborne transport in cluster 5. Cluster 6 will be talked about later by the Aquaculture Innovation Centre for some of the things there. There is a lot of webinars at the moment. Again, we've just held one. There's one coming up with KTN and how to build consortia. What I'd always say for companies is if you are looking for this and you want to don't lead it if you haven't been involved with something like this before, because it is a huge undertaking. Join a consortia, look for the consortia and join them. It would be first advice if there is something out of those that look of interest to you. And again, we can help you find those. Next slide. Okay, so we've gone through some of the funding. Oh, I should say for Europe Wave as well, single SMEs can apply for that, but they are encouraging consortia. So how do you find partners for collaborative calls? I'm going to talk about two things here. The first one is we've got a website where you can look up various companies, and then we'll talk about events. So if we go on to the next slide here. So this is our website. And again, this is for the whole of Scotland. So we've got access to EU funding on the left-hand side. And then in the middle bit, we've got Make International Connections, where you can search for different partner profiles. We've got the web link at the bottom there. If we go on to the next slide. So a lot of these ones, they've just come out or they're just starting. So we don't have any companies specifically looking for partners in those areas, but we would expect those to come out as we usually see. It was quite a lot for Eurostars at the last round. But I've got another example. It's not just used for the funding calls, it's used for a whole bunch of other things, but other people looking for different types of business partner. And I've just got an example here. As a Dutch manufacturer of maritime traffic controllers is looking for systems integrators. So you can put in your search terms. I've looked through maritime and marine. You can put in your own search terms there, and you can see if there's any companies that meet your criteria for looking for partners. If you're looking to put something up there, I would strongly recommend you put up what we'd call a technology request or a business request, because if you're actually looking for another partner, then that's when you get the lots and lots of hits and lots of expressions of interest from people wanting to contact you, rather than just some of the general, we have something type of offer. Next slide. So we'll talk about some of the events. Again, this will be a very much a whistle-stop tour because there's a lot coming out, and we'll talk about one specific one at the end. This one is called UFO. It's across a few different sectors, so not just Blue Economy, but Blue Economy is one of the main ones, and it's looking at the use of small flying objects, so drones and small satellites as well. There's a funding call associated with this, which will be announced next week. But since they are looking for collaborations, I think it's across 5 or 6 countries in this case. There's also a matchmaking event that's attached with it, and that will be held at the end of the month. This is one of the things we run, is these matchmaking events for finding partners. And over lockdown, again, it used to be just at the big physical events at things like SMM in Posidonia, which I'm sure a lot of you will be aware of. We've now gone obviously completely virtual. So when you sign up to the meetings, again, both parties have to agree to the meeting. So again, stops time wasting. Once both parties have agreed to a meeting through this website, then you'll be invited to go to a video call where you can both talk about what you're offering, what both of you are requesting, and whether it is a good match or not for your business. But this one is specifically for this one on drones and small sats. And again, we've got a link at the bottom there. Next slide. We'll try and cover a few bits of Blue Economy. This one is later in the week, and this is a floating wind supply chain collaboration day. No funding associated with it, but just straight supply chain between the Occitanie region and with Scotland. So that's open until 9th of June, link at the end. Next slide. And this one is hydrogen economy. But again, obviously of interest to Blue Economy as well. This is an electrochemical and electrolyzer aspect of things. And again, we've got the link at the bottom there. Next slide. So One thing I do want, so before we get onto the contact details, I'll leave them up there. There's another one that's coming up. It hasn't been announced, but there'll be a webinar at the end of the month on composites. So this has just been agreed as of yesterday, and we've got a few countries around Europe involved with this. I'm sure some of you made the connection as to why it's of interest to the Blue Economy. Turbine blades, especially offshore turbine blades, they are just being, kept on shore at the moment. Nothing is really happening with them. So how do we recycle and reuse them? I know there's been some use of them, but it's how do we increase that? Another one is with glass reinforced plastic boats as well. Once they come to the end of their life, how do we recycle and reuse those? So we've got I mentioned the sector groups at the start, we've got the maritime sector group, we've got some of the other ones like circular economy, intelligent energy, all coming together to work out how we can get organisations across Europe and beyond, and companies that can work on this. So we've got a webinar with experts, problem owners, challenge owners on the 22nd of June on this topic, and there'll be a bigger event later in the year on how we can better join the dots. But at the moment we're working out what people are active in this area for composites and recycling and reusing. So brief mention on that. Contact details, if you're in the Scottish Enterprise region, use the FIS address there. If you need market information, contact there. We've got general funding and innovation news on Twitter. If you want to follow me on, that's from Callum Ramage. Yeah, I can talk to you after that one, after this. Feel free to follow me on LinkedIn, on my own Twitter as well. I try and put up things that are Blue Economy related at least a few times a week. Look at worldwide partners there, and the KTN website has a lot of good events and funding alerts as well. So certainly there's a whole lot of resources, and again, Karen at Highlands and Islands will have a lot of those as well. So please contact either of us on that. But with that, I'll hand back to Jennifer.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that, Craig. Lots of really good information there. And as Craig said, the slides will be available, and the session is being recorded, so you can catch up on anything that you may have missed when Craig was going through the examples there. And yeah, of course, as Craig said, please do get in touch if you have any specific questions, or if you want to discuss anything. And we're seeing again some questions coming in the chat as well, so please do keep those coming in. Okay, fantastic. So we will move on to our final speakers for this morning's session. So Sarah and Daniel, I will pass it over to you.
Thank you, Jennifer, and good morning, everybody. We're delighted to be here and have the opportunity to speak. And you've got the dynamic duo of Daniel and I. We thought we were the last session, so we'll mix it up, and I'm sure we keep it lively. So to make a small introduction, I joined SAKE in 2020, June, so a year ago actually, last week, and I'm responsible for the innovation and engagement team, running a plethora of projects ourselves, and also ones that we co-fund, and also really driving that connection across the consortium, which we'll touch on as well. My backgrounds come very much from the industry, from the sector, working in the farming world, both with Maui, Scottish Sea Farms, and then taking a small sabbatical to serve the retailer responsible for the procurement. That's probably enough from myself. Hand over to Daniel, and then I get on with the first chunk. So Daniel, just to make a small introduction.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sarah. Good morning, everyone. I'm Daniel, Aquaculture Innovation Officer for SAKE. Also delighted for having the opportunity to be here. I joined SAKE in November last year with a background of almost 10 years working in aquaculture, both in applied research and industry, from integrated multi-trophic aquaculture systems and seaweed farming in Spain, from where I am originally, to salmon and cleaner fish production, health and welfare gained over the years in Scotland, working in companies such as Benchmark or Scottish Sea Farms or Otter Ferry before joining SAKE. Sarah?
Thank you. Yeah, I had avoided saying how many years, Daniel, but I think I'm up to 18 years, but it's all been a blur and much enjoyed. This morning, team, we really look forward to giving you a flavour of the extensive commitment, investment and achievements to date in innovation for the sector, and an overview as well of funding potential opportunities. Sorry, please, next slide. So SAKE are one of 7 Scottish Government innovation centres, now 7 years old. We have a very dynamic reach. I'll give you a flavour of what we do as well. But as you'll know, Scotland is not necessarily in our name title anymore. We are Sustainable Aquaculture Innovation. And this is really a reflection of not only our green chapter, but also the reach of our consortium. And I think that is so important to surmise, as Craig and Karen have done. The innovation rarely comes alone. It's that fabric and that connection and that project partner breadth, which will really allow an impactful outcome from the trials. Again, I mentioned we have core projects and non-cores. We have many funding match funds that we do with some of the funding bodies that we will share, such as Innovate UK, BBSRC, Seafood Innovation. And I think this has been a real strength, and we see a lot more opportunities in this space for SAKE and the consortium. So next slide, please. Our innovation programme is delivered through 3 key areas. We call them driving, nurturing and sharing innovation. But ultimately, we connect industry with academia to encourage collaboration on priority innovation areas, sharing insight and knowledge gleaned with the wider sector, attract additional UK and EU funding into Scottish aquaculture, encourage new generations into the sector and develop those already working within. So as I said, SAKE's innovation programme is delivered through the 3 key work streams: driving, nurturing and sharing. Daniel, my responsibility being driving innovation. The overarching aim is again, however, the same: to deliver a tangible benefit to the sector and in turn Scotland, whether that's enhanced fish welfare, increased capacity for producers, highly skilled new recruits or fresh revenue streams. Our ultimate ambition is for the Scottish aquaculture sector to be stable, well-regulated, animal-friendly and scientifically robust industry that is a benefit to the Scottish economy and its local communities alike. Next slide, please. So we touched on our priority innovation areas, and these have been designed through industry consultation to clarify our key focus areas that we fund projects and work with others to fund projects. So the 3 key areas seen as our PIAs for the Scottish aquaculture are firstly, finfish health and welfare and management of environmental impacts. And we'll touch on a few of these case studies, but this is a very, very big title and covers such a wide range of projects that we have running within this realm, right the way through from gill health to cleaner fish development with Ballon Wrasse. We recently had a Ballon Wrasse International Conference just last week, and that learning about growing another species has been fantastic, vaccine development, etc. Secondly, unlocking additional capacity. This can be from modelling oceanics to farming in different locations, in different ways below the surface, etc. And last but not least, our shellfish and other non-fin fish species. So mussels, very important and growing as well. Seaweed, again, smaller, but with a lot of opportunity as well for the sector and for the industry. So each project we undertake addresses one of our key priority innovation areas. So now let's, if I may, take a very quick look at the diversity of innovation that SAKE and the sector have taken to date. I think if I may just jump forward 2 slides. Okay, so we have a total of 30 live core projects. So these are funded by SAKE, and 14 of these were funded just in the last year. And all 30 are across, as previously mentioned, the innovation areas 1, 2 and 3. And SAKE has been successful in aiding leverage in wider funds with 14, I think just now to be confirmed, 15 live, as we call them, non-core projects. And that's with SAKE as a part funder and project manager, and that be across the EIT, platform, digital and food, Innovate UK, Seafood Innovation or BBSRC projects. Many of our projects run over multiple years with up to in some instances, 12 project partners. That's a reflection of the complexity and the life cycle of the animals that we look after as well. But all have real tangible outcomes of value and potential impact for the sector. Moving on to the next one, a couple of examples. And I think these are always pictures speak 1,000 words. Within Innovation Area 1, Health and Welfare, we've recently funded use of a serum biomarker for early diagnostics of cardiomyopathy in salmon. And I think this is so important as a life diagnostic. Bridging between Innovation Area 1 and 2, Health and Welfare, and unlocking additional capacity, we've recently funded a project to develop and optimise Ballan-RAS vaccine. Again, a very important area, and that's with otter ferry sea fish. And within Innovation Area 3, shellfish and non-fin fish species, we have another recently funded project which aims to develop a rapid molecular tool for the identification and management of fouling epidemics in blue mussel farms with multiple shellfish producers. So again, I think it's so valuable to give you a flavour of what's ongoing. Now, if I may just skip on to the outcomes examples. So 3 examples of finished projects which we've delivered. Salmosim, a salmon gut stimulator for digestibility trials, making it quicker and more cost-effective than traditional live fish trials. It has already secured its first commercial contract. Another successfully finished project is the innovative rock anchor for aquaculture that explored the development of a groutless anchoring approach by mechanical ground lock. It derived from techniques used in highly energetic marine energy sites using a remotely operated drilling rig positioned from a workboat. One of the most recent projects is sea cucumbers as a bioremediator. The startup company behind the idea, Blue Remediation, is investigating whether sea cucumbers could allow a potential of 20% plus production growth at Scottish salmon farms by consuming fish species and any uneaten feed beneath the pens, and was an award-winning fund with the Seafood Innovation for a feasibility study, which we co-funded, and we're now looking at wider R&D support. So I hope that just gives you a flavour of the diversity, but also the applicability of what we touch. Now, if I may just move on to touch on funding opportunities. We have at the moment our own rapid response call open. This was in November 19, it was announced as well, phase 2 of funding to drive, nurture and share. But we see the ability to connect industry with academia research to spark innovation within the aquaculture and its increasing value to the Scottish economy, ensuring that we channel our resources in the right areas of highest importance to the sector. We can currently fund projects through our rapid response call. It must be a collaboration with at least one industry partner and one Scottish higher education institute. That's as per SAIC's governance. A company that is active within Scottish aquaculture, also including those headquartered overseas, but having operations in Scotland. And it is willing to contribute resources to the project. That can be in cash or in kind. All details of this are on our website as well, in terms of the detail of match funding, etc. But that's an interesting route and one that we are working hard to make sure we maintain open as long as possible. I think we also mentioned Karen and Craig technology readiness level. SAIC's focus typically is at technology ready level is 4 to 7. With some of our co-funding of others, that allows us a wider reach, particularly in some of the earlier ones, technology, from 1 up to 4. But that's our main core activity focus is technology readiness 4 to 7. Okay, I am moving on because I'm conscious I will take all this. Investments to date. As you've seen, SAIC invests in innovative R&D projects to help solve some of the sector's biggest challenges. But Scottish aquaculture would be nothing without its people. And that's why we also focus on nurturing the skills of future aquaculture professionals, helping develop the innovators and lead our sector's needs. This includes working with businesses to support PhDs, masters and interns programs, running free training courses to develop innovation and leadership skills, and supporting the diversity and well-being of aquaculture professionals through networks like our Women in Scottish Aquaculture, WISA, not just exclusively for women. Everybody is welcome, but it's a great networking platform to aid conversation as people are developing through the sector. And last but not least, thank you. And I've mentioned at the start, so I'll end my piece before handing over to Daniel with the same in terms of our consortium and our reach. I think this is what makes it so valuable in putting projects together. Our reach is a tremendous academic alumni, all the farming sector, our stakeholders, the supply chain, the richness of the supply chain and its stakeholders. We now have 215 active across that piece, and we are short to be releasing our SAKE platform again to age forum to aid engagement across that network. So we're looking forward to it, but we see so much value in learning, not only knowledge exchange, but enriching some of the projects that we work on with this wider reach. Thank you all. I'll hand over to Daniel.
Thank you, Sarah. As Sarah said, we give support and help through funding from other various sources available, such as the Marine Fund Scotland, which you can see in the slide, which was recently created to replace the European Maritime and Fisheries Fund. The expressions of interest process is now unfortunately closed and applications are being reviewed. Eligible projects should benefit fishing and aquaculture sectors, focus on environmental protection, but also help support and develop processing and marketing. Priority is given to applications with the highest quality in terms of clear identified activities, delivering measurable outcomes, which in turn support Scotland's low carbon blue economy. We are aware of several projects that have been asked to progress to full submission, and we are keen to support wherever appropriate. Oh, sorry, we are still in the wider reach. Next, yes, and next one again. Apologies for that. Okay, so now the Seafood Innovation Fund is another well-known funding opportunity. Although calls are currently closed for new applicants, they regularly open for new applications, offering the chance to bid for up to £50,000 for feasibility studies, or up to £200,000 for full research and development projects, down from £250,000 award on previous calls. The Seafood Innovation Fund is open to all organizations, both from the UK and also the European Union, and collaborative projects, including both seafood sector and technology business, are especially encouraged and appreciated. SAKE has supported various projects, both full research and development, such as the Rapid Diagnostics and Connected Sea Farm, as well as feasibility studies like kelp ring and preemptive and non-invasive disease diagnostics for shellfish, and the blue remediation using sea cucumbers as bioremediators previously mentioned by Sarah. All these three last projects have now been invited to apply for a full research and development grant. Next slide, please. Now, just to give you a flavor of two success stories. SGUR Services is one of these successful examples we would like to show you of a SME that has been awarded with SAKE support a SIF grant of £50,000 for a feasibility study to assess the use of natural kelp on salmon farms as hide for cleaner fish. This feasibility study has already been completed, and now they have been invited to apply for a full research and development grant. The second one is the project Connected Sea Farm, an IoT project led by R3 IoT. It is another successful example of a SME that has been awarded a seafood innovation grant with SAKE support. In this occasion, a full research and development grant for a total value of £200,000. The R3 platform will provide the means to securely store, view, process, interpret, and export valuable information created from data collected across all connected fish farms, regardless of the location. Next slide, please. Horizon Europe is the new European Union Research and Innovation Programme, as Craig mentioned previously, and is the largest transnational research programme ever, which will have a budget of around €95.5 billion for 2021 to 2027. As agreed in the UK-EU trade deal, the UK will associate to Horizon Europe, meaning that the UK entities, including universities, research centres, individual scientists, and industry, will have full rights to participate in the calls. Horizon Europe is divided in 3 pillars, each with different focus and aims. The pillar we feel from SAIC is the one best aligned with the aquaculture sector, is Pillar 2, Cluster 6, Food, Bioeconomy and Natural Resources. It will receive a loan 8.9 billion euros within the next 7 years, and it includes the farm to fork strategy. This funding call is aimed at fishers and aquaculture producers that deliver better climate and environmental results, moving towards sustainable and resilient aquaculture systems, including the use of low trophic species, high animal welfare, and alternative sources of protein for food and feed. Projects must be a consortium of minimum 3 independent legal entities established in the European Union member states or associated countries, like us. The award criteria will be based on excellent science, impact and quality, and efficiency of implementation. Call 1 is already open for this cluster, and it will close on the 1st of September 2021. And Call 2 opens the 28th of October this year and closes the 15th of February next year. Each call has very specific topics and destinations. So for more information, please do not hesitate to contact us, as we don't have the time here to go through the individual destinations, clusters, and pillars in detail. If you would like to know more, SAIC recently supported a webinar to showcase applicability and aid navigation of alignment with specific clusters. Link is shown in the slide, and I'm happy to pass it on to whoever is interested. So please get in touch. Next slide, please. A separate mention deserves the European Institute of Innovation and Technology, or EIT, an independent European Union body, but part of Horizon Europe Pillar 3. And as such, UK entities will participate in its program on the same terms as any other European Union member state. EIT supports the development of European partnerships called innovation communities. Each is dedicated to finding solutions to specific challenges such as EIT Food and EIT Digital. EIT Food, for instance, aims at create 86 and support over 500 startups within the next 7 years, attracting a total of over 192 million euros to help develop new products and services. The opportunity is great. SAIC has closely collaborated with EIT Digital and EIT Food, as I'll show you now. Next slide, please. Thank you. With EIT Digital, we recently funded the fish farming project Open Data Platform for Salmon Aquaculture, or Aquaculture Insights, which won funding from their last call, where 172 applications were received, with this being the project deemed to have the greatest potential, earning a 1.3 million euros award. The project aims to aggregate all information on a farm, tying up all sensors, and pulling all information together to allow clean presentation of information to inform business decisions. And most recently, together with EIT Food, 2 projects have been successfully awarded in excess of 2 million euro from the recent Sustainable Aquaculture Call. We are unable to give you details about this, as they are completing their collaboration agreement. But if interested, please sign up to our newsletter, where we will keep you up to speed on a monthly basis. Next slide, please. BBSRC is one of the 7 research councils that form part of the UK Research and Innovation. Each of the councils manages a UK government budgets for research, and so far BBSRC has invested over £1 billion over the last 10 years. Research in topics include fish health, fish nutrition, and improving the sustainability of fish feed, exploitation of genetics and genomics, and human health benefits of eating fish. There are a wide range of calls and funding opportunities within BBSRC, but all projects should fall within at least one of the 6 strategic framework focus areas: reducing waste, understanding and exploiting genomics, precision and smart technologies, sustainable systems, animal health, and food safety. BBSRC offers various tools and funding options, such as the standard research grants, KTPs, that are calls for collaborative research by promoting knowledge exchange and innovation, international partnerships, working with funding partners in other countries, and the skills and training development funds, as the supply of suitable skilled staff is important for both academic and industrial sectors. Various funding calls open and close at different times during the year. However, the KTP and Standard Research grants are open all year round. And SAIC is actively involved, giving support to various applications and ongoing projects. We currently have 5 live BBSRC projects: NoCFIS, Aqualib, the previously mentioned Robusta Smolt, Rife SOS, and now towards light resistant salmon. And next slide, please. Thank you. Although Craig has already spoken about them, I just wanted to mention that at SAIC, we also help draw funding and support applications for Smart UK and Eureka Eurostars that, as you know, they are specific for SMEs. Next slide, please. Let me now briefly touch on the SAIC consortium. We have now got over 200 members from the academic community, public bodies, extensive supply chain, producers, nutrition providers, and retailers, from large transnational companies to relatively small SMEs, both Scottish and British. Collaboration is key in successful innovation delivery, and to have this expanding network is a fantastic base to build those project teams and drive innovative solutions for the sector. We always welcome new members and that can support aquaculture sector growth. So please get in touch if interested. We are here to support and guide your business, help you find partners, and guide you through this expanding and fascinating sector. Next slide, please. And last, if I may, although Karen has already spoken in depth about this, we should insist on how important it is for success submit a well-thought application. Networking is essential. Get the right partners. Create a collaborative network within your establishment and beyond. We believe the people involved are just as important as the project you are proposing. Allow plenty of time and plan. Always everything takes longer than initially thought. Plan your application and take your time. Ensure eligibility. Choose your funder carefully. And it's good to talk. Speak to the funders, speak to us, and ask for guidance. Well-defined objectives and outcomes. What does success look like? How will you reach that success? How your project will change and benefit the world? Include preliminary data with clear and strong references that validates your approach and justifies your methodology. Be focused, be honest, and be always solution-driven, but always remember you are selling an idea to an audience. So make sure it's an exciting idea, taking on a serious challenge. So identify the hook. And next slide, please. And that it's all from our end. I hope the session has been useful. Innovation is a key enabler to our sector growth, and we are pleased to say that there has certainly been no lack of appetite for projects. The future is blue, the future is bright, and there are plenty of opportunities out there. Thank you all for listening. It has been a pleasure to have this opportunity with you today, and please do not hesitate to be in touch and talk to us at any time. We will like to invite you all to kindly participate in the Menti poll to aid us know more about your views and the best way to support your business. The questions we kindly ask you to answer are: do you see applicability and opportunity for your company to work in the aquaculture sector? How could SAIC best help your business develop in the aquaculture sector? And where are you based?
Good to see the mix in the first answer question as well, Daniel.
Yeah.
Information on funding opportunities,
Yeah.
core to and guidance on how to succeed in these opportunities, networking. Yeah, very, very core.
That's key. Yeah, one of the main roles. So please get in touch. And
welcome to join the consortium as well. Value that. There are many benefits in terms of sharing that knowledge and staying current on where challenges or opportunities exist.
Maybe we can
I think we
pass
move
on to the next one.
Yeah.
And last one, where are you based?
Always nice for us to understand, yeah. And as I think we hopefully gave you the view that our Scotland, UK, Ireland, Faroes, Chile, Canada, Spain, yeah, we're a real broad spectrum. And Tasmania, we've been working, Norway, yeah, we see the value in that collaboration. Thank you all for taking the time.
Thank you very much.
Jennifer, I think we hand back to you.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Daniel. Yeah, some fantastic examples there of how these funding opportunities can really be used within an industry like aquaculture. So thank you for that. One initial question for yourselves, Sarah and Daniel, and maybe Craig or Karen might want to come in on that as well, is we've talked a bit about TRL levels today and the kinds of opportunities that there might be for projects that are quite technology focused or maybe product focused. And I wonder if there's the same kind of opportunities for projects that are more in the realm of services, or it might be training or skills development or knowledge transfer, something slightly less tangible that might not have a TRL level, but is maybe more strategic in the development of the sector. Sarah or Daniel, do you want to maybe come in on that?
I think in terms of it's the whole piece, you know, skills, absolutely. So Mary, we would help connect with, she's our head of skills. And again, not only speaking to all of the academic institutes, Jennifer, but also speaking, we have an HR directors group as well. We're speaking regularly to the sector in terms of finding those gaps, needs, and of course, bridging. That can sometimes take a little bit of time. So to have that upfront where we see opportunities or indeed challenges ahead. I think with regard to services, I mean, an example Daniel and I've been, you know, working on as well as, you know, for example, inspection and maintenance remote. That isn't necessarily a product as that, such as like an underwater vehicle, because it's the skill to use that. And I just like pictures, so I can show you an example of that. That's a service and a progressive service in the space. So yeah, I think there may be others that you look at and go, well, that's been used in oil and gas, or it's been used in renewables for many years. We're operating in a similar space, so across or in the same environment, we're underwater, we're subsea. If there can be learnings that can benefit, and indeed those are services as well as products, Jennifer, yeah, our focus is applicable.
Great, thank you. Craig, was there anything that you wanted to mention about that?
I would say that the vast majority of ones that I do see in terms of proposals are about technologies, but Innovate UK Smart, certainly they do say processes and services are in scope as well, or at least they were the last time that I looked.
Good stuff, thank you. There's a question here for both or either Craig and Karen. How are you helping companies to find university partners? If we are a university, what is the most effective way to get involved and to get linked up to businesses in the blue economy?
So there's two bits for that from me. My focus is absolutely on SMEs, and yeah, helping larger companies with getting in touch with SMEs. So that's absolutely my focus at Scottish Enterprise. But we do signpost companies that are looking to work with universities through organisations such as Interface, who will have the scope to get into Scottish universities that way. The innovation centres, again, that's a great interface, such as the Aquaculture Innovation Centre, but also things like Data Lab and Census as well. We do have links with all of those. And then there's other ways, such as with the KTPs, which is the Knowledge Transfer Partnerships, which is a really good scheme just for getting companies in touch with researchers that can help with their projects. Karen, you got any?
No, I think you covered everything. The only other one would be the iBioIC Innovation Centre as well, if you're interested in marine biotechnology.
Yeah. Great, thank you. There was another question here for you, Karen, saying, I appreciate all the points you're mentioning in the key considerations. I find the funding bodies can be missing two things, though. First, the team team that might mean time at the beginning is really short. The second is that TRL, in my view, should be mentioned in the funding title to avoid developers wasting their time discovering an hour later that the funding is not for them. What do you think about this? Any thoughts on that?
Again, it would just be to try and read all the associated guidance with that call before you start making the application to see if you know, if it's mentioned in the detail. It should be mentioned in the detail what kind of level they're looking at. Again, any questions, just get in try and contact the funder and discuss any questions with them as well.
It's an interesting question, though, and something that occurs to me is how those funding calls are developed in the first place. Is that something that you guys feed into? And Sarah or Daniel, maybe you could come in on that as well. Or is there an opportunity for the SME community themselves to feed in at the development stage of funding calls?
Not so much in terms of us getting influencing what Innovate UK are doing. Again, Innovate UK we don't see what's coming out until it has ministerial sign-off. So there is sometimes, there was one call that was rumoured to me back in November. No, it was said, yeah, you can mention this to companies if you want. But it was always, it's 2 weeks away, it's 2 weeks away, it's 2 weeks away, and eventually it came out in March. So again, it's just what happens with central government. It's waiting for that ministerial sign off as to when things happen. So that's where we're at with that. Back to the TRL thing though. Again, TRL is not going to get mentioned with a lot of the Innovate UK ones. It is feasibility through to experimental development is the way they describe it. They don't really use TRLs, but what you will see with some of the themed calls, especially if they're in 2 phases or they're in 2 strands, is they will be labelled as feasibility, strand 1 feasibility, or strand 2 experimental development. So that's one to look out for, but certainly for the general ones like Innovate UK Smart, it goes all the way from TRL6 all the way to TRL 6 or 7, which is feasibility to experimental development, but look out for the ones in feasibility and just look out for the eligibility part.
Okay, thank you for that. Sarah, was there, or Daniel, was there anything else on that in terms of with you guys actually being able to fund some of the projects or part fund projects yourselves? Is there ways that you get feedback from the companies that you work with, or that they have an opportunity to feed into or to provide commentary on those funding opportunities that are becoming available?
I think we're in the same position as Craig, Jennifer, in terms of, you know, Seafood Innovation Fund. I think, again, our CEO actually sits on the board there as well. You know, we do regularly, SMEs are very, very important part of our consortium, and wherever there's an opportunity, I think we are making sure aquaculture is well heard and considered. I think, Jennifer, just a small note of our own funding. We don't fund a company, we fund the academic research part of the project. So that's just to be clear in terms of the innovation centres reach and funding model. So we would fund the academic that would carry out the activities for the project. So just slightly different, but just to be clear on that point.
Thanks for that, Sarah. A couple of specific questions that have come in then. I think it was you, Craig, that mentioned the composites webinar. Is there any more details, or is that, I think maybe you said that that's something that is due to come out?
It is due to come out any hour now, hopefully. So don't know the best way, if there's a general interest in it, can go out to everyone that's on the call here. But as soon as I've got the information, I'm happy to pass on to yourself to disseminate.
That'd be great. Yeah, thank you. And there was another question about, is there a contact for the June 22nd Zoom call re carbon fiber recycling?
Yep. So again, that's the same thing. So again, yeah, I will send that out as soon as we've got more information on that.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you for that. Another question here then, going back to what we were talking about TRLs. How do you know that you are covering the entire TRL ladder if the TRL is not specifically identified in the title of the fund? I'm developing technology and think this TRL mentioned could highly help. I suppose maybe going back to what you were saying, Karen, and just to add to that, it's just really, even if it's not in the title, there should be good guidance, if I understand correctly, within the specifics of that call to explain the expected TRL of that specific call. Would that be right?
Yeah.
And then, like you guys have all said, I think, go and ask the questions, come to SE or High or whoever the appropriate contact is, and just ask the basic questions, and you might be able to get directly in contact with the funding officers as well.
That's what I was going to point out. Sorry, Sarah, is actually, don't be shy, just contact us. We are here to support you. We are here to help you. Craig, Karen, ourselves, our team, and just chat with us, make your homework, and we are here to actually to support you wherever times are required to help you and guide you through some of these applications, because we understand some of them are huge monsters, and for somebody new can be actually confusing and difficult to understand all the requirements. But that's why we are here.
Yep. Hopefully,
So
we're relatively friendly faces that can
exactly.
help out. But the other one, the other one is just the Innovate UK inquiry service itself is really, really good. So if you've got that yes or no question that you want answered, so is when is the deadline, or things like that, then, or what is the maximum that you can have in a project, then ask them directly, because then it's a legally binding thing. So if it does come down the line that your question was answered correctly and then you were made ineligible for whatever reason, you can go back to that. So between the general things that we can help in terms of the proposal and the very specific questions, then hopefully we can give as much support for your proposal that you're putting in.
Great stuff. Thank you. Just a
Thank
couple
you.
of...
Sorry, Jennifer.
Sorry, Sarah, go on.
And it's exactly like Craig, don't be, the earlier that conversation can start, the better. Because often when we hear, and Craig, and the call is open, the trainers can be on. You can be running, it can be a sprint, even though you think you've got months. By the time you pull all the different partners and have clarified, and we touched on IP and things like this. So the earlier that engagement can happen, such that we are also thinking for you of a connection of a funding, and give a little bit of, and homework can be done in preparation. It's just so much easier. There'll always be a little bit of lastminute.com, but if we can reduce that to to a less in a project, does make it a lot more pleasant experience, and I think outcomes hopefully be a bit more successful.
Absolutely. Just a couple of final questions there. I'm conscious of the time, so we're just going to have a few final things. I think you each mentioned things like match funding and how some of these types of funding schemes work to part fund a program. Are there any kind of key tips or guidance for small companies specifically that might struggle in finding that kind of match funding that they need in order to be eligible? Craig, I'll maybe put that to you first. Sorry, tricky one.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, and I mean, if you are a small company and you're going for that 1 million project, and you're having to come up with 30% of that, then it's probably not going to happen if you don't have that amount of cash in the bank. So the other way of looking at it is, can you build up your TRLs till you get to that large one, to that large higher TRL project? Can you start at the lower TRLs and get funding that way that you can self-fund? So it could be a smaller feasibility project. I know the Interface and the innovation centres, they have 5k innovation vouchers up to, I think, some 20k innovation vouchers as well. So that's one way of doing it, and then building up until you can get up to that. But again, you do have to have that much funding. It has to be there. And how that works in terms of once you get to project costs for things like Innovate UK Smart, again, using that as an example, it's quarterly in arrears that you get paid for. It's just one of the things you have to look at, but really look at the finances. I think over half of the companies that were instantly disqualified is just because they didn't have the finances right. So really look at that and make sure that's squared away. Don't know if anyone else has got anything to say there.
No? Okay, brilliant. Well, I have plenty more questions here, but I am conscious of the time and I don't want to go over our time. So it's just really for me to thank each of our speakers. That's been really, really interesting. And thank you all for taking the time to give us those presentations today. As we did mention already, the slides and the recording will be made available. If you do have any additional questions, or if you want to get in touch with any of our speakers or ourselves, you can go to our website, scottishblueeconomy.co.uk. Register your interest if you would like to hear more from the Blue Economy Cluster Builder, including other events that we have coming up in the next couple of months. And you can also drop me an email, info@scottishblueeconomy.co.uk, and I can put you in touch with any of our speakers here today as well. So thank you all very much. Great to see you. And yeah, please get in touch if there's anything that you would like to hear more about. Thanks very much, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.